Well, hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite, Rafael Tavares, talking to you straight from our show here, The WrittenWrit. A show where you and I and you, take a journey together to become better writers. As you can see, we're continuing with the challenge. I've been challenged by you to do certain things with certain words, phrases, or about anything so that I can write. It's a writer's prompt. Of course, we all know what a writer's prompt is. A writer's prompt is a word, a phrase, something that gets us writing, a tool used to get us writing. Now, as you can see behind me here, this was the challenge. An unusual small child, a fairy with an off-color pet. So, that's an unusual, small, childlike, fairy-looking person with an off-color pet. That was sent to us by Melanie, one of my good old friends there. And I also got from Myra, of course, our Apple Bite, Myra, who works with us here at thebittenappletv.com. Ha 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 ha. Well, you know what I'm trying to say. Well, Myra's a great writer, so she tried to throw something at me. Well, first she gave me a nice little idea for something that happened to her, and if you want to check it out on our site, and you can see the story that happened to her with a pair of dogs and a rat. But that's what she gave me, so we can see what I can do with a pair of dogs and a rat. Anyway, and on top of that, she tried to throw something at me because here in New York we don't get many hurricanes. So she was like, "What about hurricane survival story in New York?" That's what she sent me. So I started to work things through, and I sat there and I looked at all these pieces, and I was trying to figure out which direction I would go in. And as I worked through this, and as this story here started to percolate in my brain, I started seeing something fantastical, something fantasy-based, but in more of a modern setting. What if things aren't always as they seem? Of course they're not, and that's the question. So, I was thinking, well, what if something's going on in New York that we're not privy to? And there's things going on, and there's stuff happening all around us that we're not seeing. Now we're getting a story going here. And as I was sitting there thinking about our nice little story with our small fairy-like child with an off-color pet, and as the story started to form and circulate in my brain, little pieces of this and that one here and there. And while this was happening, I ran into Myra's a pair of dogs and a rat, and something came to me of these two dogs and a rat talking to each other. And at first what I was thinking was, well, the rat's trying to convince the two dogs that he's a dog. And I was like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. And as that story started to motivate, I said, wait a minute, what if all this is set in the same setting? If all this is happening in the same story or the same universe? And I was like, well, that works. I know, you guys are kind of like totally lost and confused over there, but my brain works that way. For some reason, sometimes I get connections with things that are dissimilar, but will work in a story. Yes. Well, let me show you what I got so far, and then you can decide what is going on in this insanity-filled brain of mine. So, an unusual, fairy-like child with a small purple mouse companion walked down the street in the middle of the day, yet no one even glanced at them. She artfully dodged through the crowd like a master thief. She came close to hitting people, but never did they touch. Then she noticed him. He was looking right at her, even though he shouldn't be able to see her. He started walking towards her, and her curiosity got the best of her. She smiled her fairy-like smile and said, "Can I help you, kind sir?" He paused, for he thought he was hallucinating, and then said, "What are you?" The people around him just gave him strange looks, for to them he was speaking to himself. She giggled and said, "No, my friend, the better question is, what are you? Because if you can see me, then you are much more than you are." His head pounded as his heart tried to escape from his chest. The last thing he heard as his vision went black was the purple mouse on her shoulder say, "He ain't much, kid. If he couldn't handle sweet little us." He ain't much, kid, if he couldn't handle sweet little us. And that was that. That is the beginning of what was percolating in my head as I was dealing with the unusual small child and her interesting, colorful pet companion. Now, as I started thinking and I started looking at a pair of dogs and a rat, this is what came to me. Two dogs are casually walking down the street when they notice a rat following them. They turn around and growl at the rat when the rat says, "Yo, what's with the growling?" The black and white dog blinks and says, "We don't hang out with no rats, that's why." The rat smiles and says, "Hey, who you calling a rat? I ain't no rat, I'm a dog." The two dogs look at each other, then back at the rat, and the brown one says, "You ain't no dog, rat." The rat looks indignant and says, "Look here, you big towser. Ain't you never heard of one of them chihuahuas?" "Yeah," both dogs say, squinting at the rat. The rat then smiles and says seriously, "Well, that's what I am, a chihuahua." Yeah, I know. I don't know where this stuff comes into my head, but that's the scene that popped into my head when I was thinking about two dogs and a rat. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what happens next, but I like the beginning of that. And of course, that led to... Actually, I must say that that scene popped into my head as soon as I heard it. The concept of putting them all together didn't happen until after I finished that, and I was thinking, well, maybe that's the same universe. So what I started to do with the next one is, and here we go, the next one, a hurricane survival in New York. The storm brewed outside. It had been a while since New York had seen a storm of this intensity. The streets were flooded as the waters battered the city. At this rate, Manhattan would soon be underwater. She sat by his bed, wiping the sweat off his head with a towel. "I just don't think the city can take much more of this. You need to do something quick, like this hurricane's gonna break New York apart," the rat says as he watches the unusual fairy-like child carefully care for the unconscious man. "I know, I have tried almost everything," she says, a worried look on her face. "You know humans are fragile. Even when they are special, their minds just snap. At the likes of us, you're gonna have to go into his mind." She sighs, puts her hands on his head. "You're right. I have to stop this storm. I hope I don't kill him." And that was the other part of this that whole popped into my head. Now this whole story is percolating in my head, and I'm putting all these things together. And I'm coming up with an interesting concept of things that are happening in New York that we are not privy to, as I was saying earlier. Now, the storm seems to be happening because of some magical influence caused by this guy who is beginning to see these people. Now, who is this guy? Is he like a chosen one? Is he just one of them and he doesn't know it? And these are the questions that I have to start answering as I continue forward with this story. As I've told you before, sometimes you just need to lay things out and start working on them so that you can see where you're going. Sometimes things that are not connected at all can come connected. I have had things where I'm working on two different stories, and all of a sudden they come together to form one story. Or I take aspects of other stories and I make a bigger, broader, epic tale. And this is all the process of writing. And again, the best thing to do is write, because as you write, as you use your imagination, as you move things forward, you will see the story form before you and connect. But the thing is, you have to write. The thing is, you have to put this story together. And soon I probably will be talking about storytelling, because this is an important aspect of being able to tell a story. But this is the challenge and what I did with it and all the things that I put together with it. And I hope that today has helped you with your writer's process and this journey of writing that we're taking, so that you guys can understand your process better. With that, this is your Apple Bite Rafael Tavares signing off. Till next time, we'll all say something like, 2 dogs and a cat. Hey, maybe the cat wants to be a dog too. I don't know. I don't know where to come up with this stuff. Adios, amigos. Well, alright, Apple Bites, that's our show for today. And you know you want to give me thumbs up because you liked all this manipulating of words and stuff that I'm doing to make this story become something. Do yourself a favor, take a bite out of the apple, press that subscribe button down there and become an Apple Bite, because you know you want to. Of course, the other thing you want to do is you see that comment section down there below? Share your story with us. Let us know how we're doing. Tell us if you want me to handle something, cover something, or you have a question or anything. Put it down there and I'll get to it. Alright, my friends, this is your Apple Bite, Rafael Tavares, talking to you. Until next time, signing out. Adios, amigos. A pair of dogs and a rat. Man, you gotta see these New York rats. You'll see what I'm talking about. That's why he's a Chihuahua. Adios.